Hi, I'm Lauren,
And I'm Matt.
and this is Publish and Prosper.
Where publishing, e-commerce, and marketing collide.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Publish and Prosper. Today we're going to be talking about something that from a consumer perspective works on me like 95% of the time. So it'll be fun to talk about it from a marketing and sales perspective for a little while. And that is pre-order campaigns and how to use a pre-order campaign effectively to maximize your book sales and grow your audience.
I thought for sure you'd say something Taylor Swift oriented when you say it works 95% of the time on you.
Oh, well, I mean, it definitely does in that case because
But you went broader with it. Gotcha.
for sure. But I mean, specifically for books, like I'm a real sucker when it comes to a good pre-order campaign for a book, for sure.
I like a pre-order campaign only because I know what it does for the author.
Exactly. That is actually
Otherwise,
genuinely.
I can wait. Like there's, I don't know. I'm a little less like you in the sense of the anticipation that builds for me with a book. I mean, Grady Hendrix's new book dropped recently, and while I was aware of it and I was excited for it to come out, I didn't see anything about a pre-order if there was one. And if there was one, I may or may not have done the pre-order, but I definitely would go get the book now that it's out.
Yeah.
But if I know it's an indie author, I'm way more inclined to support a pre-order campaign just because I know what it does for them. And so I'm assuming that's part of what we'll talk about today.
Oh, yeah, for sure it is. But yeah, I know it's a fine line for me of I'm very susceptible to a pre-order campaign, especially when it includes some kind of incentive to pre-order the book, which we will talk about in this episode as well.
Yeah.
But I'm also very picky about the condition of my books. I want, like, I will go, I absolutely, if I'm going to go to Barnes & Noble and buy a book, if there's a stack of 10 books on a table, I will go through all 10 of them and pick the one that I deem to be the best, quote unquote.
I have definitely done that on occasion.
Yeah. So it's a fine line of like pre-order campaigns, but also like wanting to get, but if it's something that it's like an indie author or somebody that I know I'm not going to be like, it's unlikely that their book will be in major, even traditionally published books that are like small and niche enough that they're probably not going to be in Barnes & Noble on day one, I will go ahead and make sure that I pre-order it in advance because, always a sucker for those. And also because, like Matt immediately started to allude to, it's very beneficial for authors in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Which I guess we can jump right in and get to that unless you had anything else you wanted to start with.
No.
Okay, great.
Wait. No.
Okay.
No. Let's go.
All right. So, I mean, let's just jump right into talking about it. So, if you're not already aware of this, the pre-launch, I would argue, is the most valuable window of time for marketing your book.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what's sad is that even to this day, no matter how many people talk about it, and now obviously there's the caveat that it's different for everybody, but for the most part, one of the constants that you can count on is that window of pre-marketing attention that is open and up for grabs if you do it right. But so many people just don't. Like, they, for whatever reason, they still think that marketing starts at launch.
Yep.
Or marketing starts the week before launch. Like, hey, I'm launching next week. Like, you're already way behind the curve if that's when you're starting your marketing.
Way behind the curve. I can't tell you the number of times that I've had conversations with authors that they've come up to me and said something along the lines of, okay, so I published my book. Now, how do I start marketing it? And I'm just like,
well, it's
you go back in time 6 to 8 weeks. Like, I don't know.
You got a DeLorean that you can crank up? Let's get that thing up to 88 gigawatts or whatever, gigawatts or whatever it is. But I think the reality of it is, if you implement, the pre-launch marketing stages, and everybody's outline of how you do this is different, but what's important is that you do it. And if you do it, it is so much easier to market your book pre-launch. And the further out you start, for the most part, the easier it gets to market it, and the cheaper it is to market the book, by the way. So the sooner you start talking to people about this book, I would start when you're 50% of the way done writing it. Pull people in, start talking about it on your social media channels, in your email newsletters, at events, with friends, with peers. Like, the more you get the word out that you've got this next book in the works, it just gets easier to market it as you get closer and closer to launch. And for the most part, incrementally cheaper. Mm-hmm. What happens is if you start marketing at launch or post-launch, now you're behind the 8 ball. So you're trying to do everything now. And to get now results means you need to spend now money. And now money is a lot more expensive than premature money or, long-term investments, right? So if you need to spend money now to make money in book sales now, that is a lot more costly than if you started way earlier with a lot of organic and earned media, right? Talking to your audiences and earning audiences outside of that for free, as well as sprinkling in a little bit of money here and there. You're going to be way better set up for launch day than if at launch day you're opening that checkbook and starting to freak out and go, oh, I got to tell people about my launch. Get ready to write a lot of checks.
Yeah. Literally and figuratively.
For those of you listening that are, a lot younger than me, a check is something we used to use. It's attached to your bank account by a string of numbers, and you could write on this piece of paper called a check, and then you exchange that for goods and services, assuming that the business and or organization would take checks, and then that check would get deposited in their bank account. The money would be withdrawn from your account in about 3 days or so. It used to get a lot of us older folks in trouble sometimes too, but anyways.
I do just want to be clear, as you're looking at me, as you're explaining what a check is, I do know what a check is.
Well, your dad was also in the finance industry.
I do have a checkbook still to this day in my apartment.
Is it yours?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I mostly just use it for easy reference from my routing number when I'm setting up direct deposit, but I still have one.
Yeah.
It's fair. But yes, no, you're completely correct. And literally and figuratively writing checks in that window of time, because there's going to be a lot to do. But all of that is to say, if you started listening to this episode and you're like, you guys said this is going to be an episode about pre-order campaigns, and then immediately started talking about pre-launch marketing.
Well, I mean, it's 6 and 1/2 dozen in the other,
right.
Really.
So my point there, and I'm assuming also his implied point, is that if you're going to put all of this effort into your pre-launch marketing, the best thing that you can do for yourself is be ready to take pre-orders and sales as you are doing that pre-launch marketing, and not waiting until your book is available. Because it is great to build up a lot of buzz and a lot of hype about your book 6 weeks out, 8 weeks out, 3 months out, whatever it is. But you want to make sure that people are going to buy your book when it comes out. And it's a lot harder to bring people back to your store. Like, if you're doing all this like really good pre-launch marketing, and your only CTA in that pre-launch marketing is add my book on Goodreads, or add it to your calendar and remember that it's going to come out on this date in 3 months and go buy it then, you could have a really successful, by metric standards, pre-launch campaign and still not sell copies of your book when launch day actually happens.
Yeah, or sell very minimal copies. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, any amount of marketing work is going to net some sales, but there's a big difference between, 5 sales and 500 sales or 5,000 sales.
BookBub did a survey a couple of years ago about how authors use pre-orders. I believe I have it linked in the show notes. Let me double check. I do. I have the survey linked in the show notes if you want to check it out. But they did say 85% of authors have tried a pre-order campaign, and 72% of those were self-published authors. So clearly this is a popular marketing tactic, and I would have to assume that it's worked if that many people are still doing it or trying it or using it as a strategy. Yeah,
I think, again, and we'll get into this, there's a lot of reasons why you would do a pre-order, and for indie authors specifically, one of the biggest reasons they do it, at least the ones we talk to, is quite frankly to generate some upfront money to go towards the completion of the book. Mm-hmm. But, it's also widely used for other reasons, like part of a marketing strategy, part of a particular strategy to gain the bestseller lists, potentially, depending on where you're selling. There's a lot of other reasons too, but I think, when you bring up the BookBub survey and other surveys out there by other publishing industry organizations or other peers in the industry, a lot of it is, again, focused on fiction authors, and a lot of them are doing it to, again, get some of that money up front so they can pay for the completion of that book, so they can pay for the final proofread and the final design and layout and get that stuff off to print.
Although that's not to say that this isn't equally applicable to nonfiction authors.
No, for sure.
Pre-order campaigns and pre-launch marketing are essential for not essential, but are great strategies for any and all genres of book.
Yeah, I think when you talk about fiction versus nonfiction, all you're really going to do is reorder the priorities to which somebody would actually be doing a pre-order, why they would be doing it. Like on the fiction side, I think the priorities for why they would do a pre-order, most of the people we talk to, again, on the fiction side, it's to get some money up front for finishing the book and or covering the costs of other things related to that book, like some pre-marketing efforts and things like that. And then, the list goes down in order of other reasons why they're doing the pre-order. If you look at nonfiction, most of the time that a nonfiction author, especially a nonfiction indie author, is pre-ordering or setting up a pre-order campaign, it's more for marketing reasons. And they're using that as a reason to get earned media placements, right? Like to be invited on a podcast or onto a stage to talk, or, to get some extra social media coverage for free from somebody else. So yes, I think in both major genres, fiction versus nonfiction, everybody's doing pre-orders for the most part. The number one reason why they're doing them, I think, just flips depending on which genre you're in.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think everybody should be doing it first and foremost as a marketing tactic.
I agree with that. I think this is something that if you're not already doing it, you absolutely should be. At the very least, try it.
I'm always thrown when you say you agree with me, so I have to stop for a second.
Well, that's okay. Not only do I agree with you, but you just immediately knocked out 2 of the 4 points in the first section of my outline. So we are so on the same page here. It's kind of unsettling.
Does that mean we can leave now?
No. You got to give me at least 20 more minutes.
20 more minutes?
Yeah.
I can talk for 20 more minutes.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
There's a lot of good stuff on TV these days that I could talk about.
There's a lot of good stuff in this outline.
Okay. Let me read this outline. You can keep talking. I'll read the outline.
Just to cover the basics of how a pre-order campaign can help your book launch, Matt just shared 2 of them right now. The first one being helping to fund your production costs by crowdsourcing your pre-launch campaign using something like a Kickstarter campaign. We've done a whole episode on this, so I don't think we really need to dive too deeply. I'm sure it'll come up in conversation in the course of this episode, but I don't want to dive too deeply into this, so just go listen to episode number 19 for the specifics about how to use a Kickstarter campaign as a
Kickstarter
campaign.
Or other, like some of you may already have like a newsletter subscription or a Patreon or things like that. But, again, Kickstarter being the most popular right now and probably one of the easier ways to do it. But, yeah, I think in general we're talking about a particular type of upfront crowdfunding. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. A Kickstarter campaign in the same way that we talk about putting on a Band-Aid instead of a bandage. It's the...
Yes, okay.
You know what I mean?
All right, yeah.
How I still MapQuest directions, even though MapQuest died a long time ago.
Shout out Kickstarter, but everybody else too, yeah.
Yeah.
But we do like Kickstarter.
Yes, we do. But your point is completely valid. Any kind of crowdsourced campaign.
Band-Aid versus bandage. I'll have to remember that one. Okay.
You know what I mean, though, right?
100%. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. But then the other thing that you said right away, too, just there, was the idea of using your pre-order campaign and your pre-launch marketing efforts to help you secure earned promotion.
Yes.
Which is a great way to use, especially if you have a very successful campaign. If you do something interesting, if you have kind of a unique or unusual or landmark successful pre-order campaign, that is a great reason to try to get earned media opportunities, whether it's to have coverage from, if you have a really successful Kickstarter campaign and Kickstarter wants to use you as a case study, or you did something really cool in your local community as a part of your pre-order campaign and a local newspaper wants to write an article about it, or you did something really cool for your pre-order campaign and you pitch yourself to be on a podcast for indie authors where you want to talk about how you found success doing this really cool thing and you want to try that again. And also, by the way, you've got this new book coming out that while everyone is listening to this, they should totally go buy because they can pre-order it right now.
I think that, and Lauren will link to this in the show notes too, we did an episode on, how to secure earned media, like some of the actual steps and things you should do, building out a spreadsheet of contacts, all those things. But what you're saying is correct. What I would add to that, though, is you just threw out a lot of sort of higher level types of earned media activities that I don't think everybody would be comfortable saying, yeah, I'm going to be like this number one Kickstarter campaign. Like, you can shoot lower, though, and by lower I just mean it's a lot less intimidating, especially for early stage indie authors and creators, to, again, just create a list of like a lot of their favorite podcasts or podcasts that deal with the specific type of genre or field that they're writing about, and then some social media channels and followers, and then reach out to them first and build up from there, because we run a podcast. There are a lot of podcasts out there. They're always looking for content to talk about. Like you and I all the time, like, okay, let's plan the next 5 episodes. It usually falls on you because I don't want anything to do with it. But,
Yeah, all these episode topics are my fault, unless you like them, and then they were all my idea.
Yeah, I like to just show up and start talking. So this is why sometimes you'll see that I haven't looked at the outline yet. But the same for social media channels, though, right? Like Right now, there's a struggle for people to fill airtime, dead space with content that they feel is valuable. And sometimes what you're getting is content that's not valuable because they're just trying to put content out. If you can give them a reason to generate more content, of course they're going to want to talk to you. And then that's going to benefit you because you get in front of their audience. So don't be afraid to start building that list of people, places, organizations, channels, podcasts that you might want to reach out to at any end of that spectrum in terms of, just how big and popular the channel is versus, so a podcast could maybe have 1,000 listeners. Who cares? If 100 of them buy your book, great. That's a success story.
Absolutely.
It could have 5 million listeners and you might only get 100 book sales, if that. I mean, so don't necessarily let these numbers, intimidate you or stop you from reaching out, I think was my point.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Totally agree with that.
But there's a whole episode on that. Go find that, listen to that. Maybe I read the outline on that one, maybe not, but I'm sure it's a decent episode.
It was one of our best
that's
episodes.
right. You just said that earlier. Yeah.
It was one of our most listened to episodes in 2024.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We love earned media.
Yeah, we do. Another thing that your book can be good for, kind of related to earned media, or not your book. Another thing that your pre-order campaign can be good for is gauging interest in the overall book and topic and the details of all those things. So, if you're trying to get an idea from your audience about like, I've only ever published ebooks. Is it worth it for me to try to do a print book on this? If I'm doing a print book, should I stick to just paperback, or would people be interested in a hardcover too? Is there any interest in an audiobook? Is there any interest in anything else related to this? I don't know. If there's anything that you're trying to get a better understanding, you don't have to play the guessing game of trying to figure out what your audience is interested in. Is it worth it for me to put in the work and effort to try to create a special edition of this book or something like that? If you have a pre-order campaign where you have the opportunity for people to tell you what they're interested in by literally putting their money where their mouth is in that case, you can get a better idea of what your fans are interested in and what they're looking for from you.
Yeah, and if you are selling direct, which we hope you are, and primarily that's what we're talking about, obviously.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but that is a big part of the pre-order.
A lot of this is extremely relevant because you could create a pre-order campaign tied directly to your store and your platform. You could put multiple formats up there like Lauren is talking about and really, again, use that data to gauge just how heavily you want to invest in those particular formats when you actually launch, or how you might want to launch those formats, which we've talked about in other episodes, and how you would strategize format launching, right? So launching one format, waiting 3 months, rolling out another format, waiting 6 months to keep that sales life cycle strong versus going to market with all formats immediately. And your sales are great for a couple of months if you're lucky, and then they just drop because you've got nothing else to introduce into the market around that title necessarily. So it's a great opportunity to collect data, intent around purchases, types of formats wanted. It's just, again, another way to create that two-way conversation with your fans and buyers and readers. So, yeah.
Yeah. And to be clear about collecting that kind of data, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, you've put up a pre-order campaign for an audiobook format of your book that you may or may not ever be doing, and you're just putting up a pre-order campaign with the rest of your pre-orders. It can be as simple as you are putting up a pre-order campaign for your ebook and print book, include a questionnaire in there somewhere, or a fill in the blank, or people just even leave comments, asking, are you going to do an audiobook version of this? Or, ask people if they're interested in a hardcover or paperback or something like that. Like, you don't have to necessarily get that data by just seeing what your sales are, but by gauging general interest in pre-order sales and then getting additional information from that.
No notes.
Okay. I'm leaving that whole blank in the audio episode just to be so clear. Lastly, but definitely not least for sure, is just the idea of, again, like I said at the beginning, just making sure that you are supporting your pre-launch efforts. Like that's what the pre-order campaign is so good for. Like, I mean, anecdotally, I cannot tell you the number of times that I've seen something that I've been like, oh, that looks really cool. I would like to read that or watch that or buy that or have that thing. And it's not available yet at the time that I've seen the ad for it. And because I have the memory of a flea, by the time it comes available, I have forgotten about its existence. And if it doesn't come across my social media or my awareness or a Goodreads recommendation or something ever again, it doesn't matter how cool it sounded back in the day. I will probably never buy it or never engage with it or never read it or whatever because I forgot about it.
Yeah, a couple of just quick tips to when you're actually setting up your pre-order. Obviously, you're going to want to have a CTA that allows them to purchase the book. Use pre-order language too, though. So, avoid terms like, buy now, cop this book now, like whatever. Like, make sure it says pre-order now, because the one drawback to a pre-order, and we hear this from people all the time, is it never fails. You're always going to have at least one person, if not a few, who do the pre-order, and a few days later or a week later, they're like, hey, haven't got a shipping update yet. Where's my book? They forget that it was a pre-order. So the more opportunities you can, subtly sort of remind people this is a pre-order, because typically the average time is a 30-day window for a pre-order, right? Mm-hmm. But you might see pre-order windows go a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter, but at the end of the day, 30 days is roughly the average, and 30 days is a pretty easy amount of time to forget something. So the more you can remind them that this was a pre-order and it's going to be rolling out on this date, right, or things like that, the less you'll have to deal with some of those annoying little emails or DMs or things like, hey, where's my book? This was a pre-order, remember? So again, using language on your site, on your CTAs, inside of your store, wherever else you're at, that says, pre-order this now, or don't get left out, pre-order now, or be the first, pre-order this book now. Always using terminology that denotes this is a pre-order. And then your follow-up emails that might go out right afterwards, confirming that pre-order. And then you probably want to send some sort of a communication a week or two before launch to get them hyped up again. Hey, just a reminder, you pre-ordered this book. It is rolling out 10 days from now. Would love if you gave it a little bit of, attention on social media. Be watching that mailbox. It's coming.
Yeah. And these are all things that are interconnected too with this idea, because like one of the benefits of a pre-order campaign is if you are selling your book directly from your own website and that's how you're doing your pre-orders, and we'll get into that in a minute, this is your opportunity to collect email addresses from your customer, which is then an opportunity to remarket to them when you are talking to them, whether it's a few weeks down the road to say, hey, reminder, the book's coming out soon, or reaching out to them after the book has come out and saying, hey, hope you got your copy, hope you loved it. Would love a review if you've already read it, shout out on social media, something like that. Or even if it's a book that has any other related content to it, whether it's other books that are related to it or other products in your store that are related to it, this is a remarketing opportunity. Like, these are all part and parcel of the marketing strategy that you're putting together for this book launch. But yeah, to Matt's point, you do want to set expectations for when your book is going to arrive for people. This is something that we've argued about before, but I'm going to say here that if you are going to do a pre-order campaign, you have to have a launch date set. If you are going to do a pre-order campaign, and that's not to say...
Wait, what did we argue about there? Because I don't disagree with that.
Okay, well, you've argued about needing a launch date in general in the past.
Well, that's different. But I mean, if you're at the point now where you're selling somebody something, you're taking money from somebody, you absolutely should have a date. Now, not to take you off topic, but just as a side note, it's okay if that date has to move.
Yes,
just keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. But otherwise... we can get back on topic now. But yeah, you should have a date, of course.
No, I think that's on topic. Okay. For sure. Especially because, depending on what type of pre-order campaign you're doing, if you are doing a Kickstarter campaign where you're using your pre-order sales to fund the last little bit of your book production, then you might be pushing it a little further away from your launch date. So you might find yourself in a position where you're like, oh, unforeseen circumstances, and I have to push the launch date back a couple of weeks. That's okay. That is okay. You just have to be very communicative with your audience and specifically with the people that already bought your book.
Yeah.
And I would strongly recommend that you do have a very specific launch date, at the very least a month and a year, with the Kickstarter campaign, even if I say I'm doing a Kickstarter campaign now for a book that I have planned to come out in November of 2025. That's pretty far down the road, all things considered, but it still is setting the expectation of this book is going to come out in a few months before the end of this year. It's not going to be next week. You're not going to have the book in hand next week, but you will have the book this year.
They're definitely not going to have your book in hand next week.
No, they're not. No, they're definitely not. But I think that that's reasonable. And I completely agree with Matt that, if something happens and you need to push your launch date back, that's okay too. But I do think that you need to have a date.
What percentage of completion do you think you're at with your book?
Well, so the problem...
And I know you have multiple, so pick the one where you're closest to completion.
Okay, so, the problem is that I did finish I finished a full draft of it. And I got to the end of the draft and I said, well, that's good. Unfortunately, I don't want to write YA anymore. I want this to be adult romance instead of YA romance. So I had to scrap the entire draft and start it back over from the beginning and adjust everything so that it's adult instead of YA.
So the original question was, what percentage complete do you think you are of your book?
10.
All right.
15, no, not even close. Wow. I don't know. It's hard to judge.
Well, why would you scrap the whole genre to begin with?
I don't...
Never mind.
Yeah.
Where are we at?
Yeah. Okay.
Let's talk about how to do actual pre-order campaigns.
Yes. Oh, actually, I did want to add one more thing to the timeline thing, just for the date.
Anybody out there want to be Lauren's accountability buddy or accountability? How do you say it?
Accountability buddy, but I hate that word.
I do too, but that's,
Okay.
Podcast@lulu.com to be Lauren's accountability buddy.
I already have one. Her name is Shannon.
Well, clearly Shannon's not. Shannon, what are you doing? Good night. Is Shannon a real person?
Shannon's my best friend.
I believe Shannon's an AI model or something.
Okay. All right.
Well, no, because then she'd just write it for you.
She's busy writing her own book. It's fine.
All right.
Anyway, timeline. Matt said 30 days out for a pre-order campaign. The BookBub survey that I looked at earlier actually said 1 to 3 months. So anywhere within that window. So you can do more than 30 days out if you want to, but I agree with Matt that probably 30 days before your launch date. So a month before your launch date is,
I think
but you can push that back a little further if you want to.
I think this is one of those areas where industry statistics and knowledge isn't necessarily as applicable as maybe some consumer buying psychology is, right? Some buying patterns and habits. And again, for anything on pre-order or anything in general, really, when you ask somebody to do something, more than 30 days in advance, unless it's booking a cruise somewhere, or something like that, like you're not going to get a good response. So if I put something up today that says, hey, pre-order my new book, it's coming out, it's launching in 3 months, I'm not going to get a very good response. You might get 1 or 2 friends and family trickling in, but if you throw it up there 30 days before launch, there's a lot more likelihood that you're going to get more purchases and you're going to build some quicker buzz around it. But again, it's all preference. I do think the average is around 30 days from what we actually see happening. But, I mean, the long and short of it is you can put whatever date you want, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, have at it. But I would pay more attention to some more of the consumer buying habits and trends there versus just, what's going on in the publishing industry.
Absolutely. And that is, to be completely fair with that.
To be fair.
Traditional publishing pre-launch campaigns and pre-order campaigns absolutely look different than indie author pre-order campaigns. There's a lot of overlap, but they definitely look different. So don't base your model entirely off of a traditionally published book's pre-order campaign. But yeah, let's get back to where Matt was trying to take us, which is the different ways to do a pre-order campaign. So we've already kind of started talking about a crowdfunded campaign. So let's, kind of dive into that just a little bit. You can use that crowdsourced campaign as a pre-order campaign. Like you can use it obviously to fund your book production if you want to do it earlier in the production process. That's totally viable to do, but you can also use it just as like a pre-order tool. If you don't want to go with the other 2 options that we're going to talk about, you can just say like, hey, this book is going to be available in 30 days. Like this isn't one of those Kickstarter campaigns where, we need to gauge interest before we even start the production on this. And then, who knows, a year from now, you might get it. You can do a crowdsourced campaign that this is going to have a hard and fast end 30 days from now. You're going to get your book 30 days plus shipping time.
Oh, don't say to be fair. Hate when people say to be fair.
Oh, to be fair. To be fair. To be fair. To be fair.
To be fair.
To be fair. Oh, to be fair.
To be fair.
To be fair.
I just needed you to. You won't watch it on your own, so I had to.
Okay.
All right.
Can you send that to me?
Sure.
Okay.
But you should just watch it.
Okay.
The series, at least the first 3 seasons.
That's okay. All right. Thanks for that.
Yep. Okay.
Anyway, we've seen some authors do some really successful Kickstarter campaigns that are not just, ahead of the book production, but just using it as a pre-order campaign tool. I'm linking in the show notes a blog post from Chris Walder about using Kickstarter as a pre-order tool. So definitely check that out for sure.
Yeah.
You can also use Kickstarter pre-order campaigns as a way to sell different tiers of your book types. So if you want to gauge, let's say, for example, you really want to do a special edition. You really want to do the gold foil or the sprayed edges or something like that. And as of right now, there is no like super viable solution for one-off printing like that. But you're going to say, okay, the minimum order that I can get for one of these really cool book designs is 100 copies of this book. So I'm going to set up a Kickstarter campaign that I'm going to try to sell 100 copies of this book, and then regular editions as a separate tier on that campaign. So you can do that. And you can also, like we were saying earlier, just use it as a way to do the pre-orders way in advance when you're still in the production process of your book, and, get started with just like the general style of Kickstarter campaign that we've talked about doing in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, did a whole episode on it. So if you really want to dive into that.
Yeah, I think that's why I don't really have a lot to add here, because I think we did do a pretty good episode on that. And I think
we did.
There's a lot more detail in that episode, as well as actual steps and tips. So I would definitely check that out if you're interested in doing a Kickstarter.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Probably the way better option, not better option, but more popular option, I think, that would be beneficial to all kinds of authors, would be a direct sales pre-order campaign.
So as much as I agree with you in terms of the descriptor way better, I think for everybody's benefit and to be a little more objective, I would say the more flexible option is to do it via direct sales on your own store and your own platform. And we're going to get into all those reasons. But I agree. I think it's the way better, as you would say. Way better, dude. But it's definitely the more flexible. With Kickstarter, you have a decent amount of flexibility, but there's still, criteria you have to stick within, and they have their rules, and that's great, because that's the reason why that platform works so well for people. On the other end of that spectrum, you have third-party retail sites. There's only one or two where you can actually do pre-orders, but again, there's some very stringent sort of guidelines you have to stick within. Again, you're sharing your money. Again, you're not really getting much customer data, all those things. So I agree. This is the way better version, but it's definitely the most flexible version if you need that flexibility, which, I think to have a successful pre-order campaign and to make that pre-order a central part of your pre-launch marketing, you need that flexibility and you need that customer data. Go.
Yes. Wow. Okay.
Gave you the perfect jump off point.
You did give me the perfect jump off point, but just so aggressively. Once again, we had our little frog.
I do need to get that frog, don't I?
I did cut that out of the episode, so no one knows what I'm talking about right now.
Oh, okay.
Only you and me.
Lauren doesn't like frogs, so everybody should send pictures of frogs to podcast@lulu.com and address it to Lauren.
Matt doesn't like them either, so.
I don't have an aversion to them like you do. They're just not my favorite. I could care less.
Couldn't.
I grew up in Florida. There's frogs everywhere.
Oh,
But
that's true. You're used to
They usually get eaten
monsters.
by the iguanas or the alligators. So
Miss me with the iguanas for sure.
they're gross.
Yep. Okay. Anyway, if you are going with a direct sales pre-order campaign, there's a couple of different ways that you can do that, but it is absolutely, I completely agree with Matt that it is a great way for you to get that customer data.
It's a great way to collect the customer data around those pre-orders, and you won't get that customer data really in any other way. Kickstarter will give you some of that to a degree, for sure. But again, outside of that, doing it directly is the only way you're going to get access to all of that customer data. And the reason why that's important is because you can use that for remarketing efforts later on. Every time you do a pre-order or a sales campaign or anything else where you're selling these things directly, that is an opportunity to gain more email addresses and customer contacts and build your own database. The goal, I think, for everybody is to get to a point where you are your own little retail entity. You have all your own customer data, and every time you have something new come out, you can start there first with people who have already purchased something from you in the past, and so they've shown intent, and you have those metrics to work off of, and then go out to the general public again, versus right now where maybe you don't have that data. So everything you do, you're starting from scratch audience-wise and going to the general public and saying, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. If you could start with a segmented audience that has already purchased things from you, some of which will be super fans, you're already ahead of the curve, so why wouldn't you want to do that? So selling direct and doing your pre-orders through a direct method, it's the same thing. You're getting that customer data. You're keeping all the profits. It's all those same selling points and reasons why selling direct is the most valuable option. And it's really just about getting ahead of the game with data,
Yeah, absolutely. And it is also, so when I said that there are, a couple of different ways that you can do this, the difference here and kind of the benefit of a pre-order campaign here is that if you are interested in selling direct, you're sold on this concept that it is a good idea, but you're not quite yet at the point where you have it set up. You're still working out the details of
Boo.
All right. I'm trying to be nice to people. You're still fine tuning the details and getting it all set up like that. You can manually do a pre-order campaign.
Yes.
Without having it fully set up on your store, on your website, selling it direct with an e-commerce plugin tool quite yet. You can manually take pre-orders from people by just taking their address, their email, their credit card information, stuff like that, having them fill out very simple e-commerce like checkouts or something like that, even just through your newsletter. And then you can just put all that in a spreadsheet, use Lulu's order import tool to upload that spreadsheet and drop ship all your orders to those people. Once the book has come out, you've still fulfilled the pre-order that you promised. You got everybody the books. You did all the benefits of the pre-order campaign. Now you have that customer data because you have the data that they gave you in order to fulfill that pre-order campaign. And once you get your store set up, you've got all that ready to go.
Yes. The one caveat here, if you're going to do it in a more manual fashion and not through your actual website or something like that, is you just want to make sure that you're being very open and transparent with people around what's going to happen with their information and their data.
Yeah.
Because you are, in fact, the one collecting it. So, we say that events, for example, is a great way to collect email addresses and add people to your email list. That is fine. And typically you can argue that once you load them into your contact database and they get that first email, they do consent to privacy and all those other things that you should be making them aware of. But when you're doing an actual transaction or a sale in person, sometimes you don't have that layer there with you. And so people need to understand, and you need to understand just exactly what are you doing
right.
with that data. They need to know that it is going into your database. It is protected. When you use something like Shopify, or another type of e-commerce platform or app, or, your email marketing list, if you're doing, your e-commerce through your email platform, they have those protections in place. That stuff is there. At least I hope you're using one where it's there. Because these days there's a lot of trouble you could get in with GDPR or not being compliant with PII, so personally identifiable information, credit card numbers, all those things. So people are generally a little more inclined to buy or pre-order from you when it's on your website versus you just being like, hey, hit me in the DMs and I'll take your credit card info and we'll get it ordered up. You know what I mean? Like that's
yeah, I'm not saying that you should ask people to DM you their credit card number.
I'm just saying when we talk about a manual process, let's be clear here.
Yeah.
We're talking about something outside of them going onto your website and actually paying for a pre-order on a channel that has data protection, things in place, and people generally feel more comfortable that way. So
yes.
I wouldn't necessarily advise a manual process unless it's absolutely necessary, but it is something you can do. It's not hard. You just kind of don't have that layer of trust built in from your buyer necessarily. That doesn't mean you won't get some people that are like, let's go. I need that book. Here's my credit card. Here's a picture of the front and back of the card. Here's my social security number. Here's my home address. Like, okay.
I mean, yeah, obviously I would not encourage that either. I think it's more along the lines of kind of being able to use these as combined options for you. So, if you're still in the process of setting up your store, I personally would encourage you that if you are planning on selling a book direct and you are not prepared to have your store set up and ready to go before your book launch, what are you doing? Those should be tandem at the very least. And if not, you should have the site up before the book launch. So, reconsider the timing on that perhaps. But also just more importantly, it's something that you can do kind of to support each other. If in the process of you setting the book up, you have a conversation with somebody at an event and you say like, oh yeah, I'm getting ready for a pre-order campaign for this book. And they say, oh my God, well, I'm very interested in this. Like, can I place a pre-order for it now? Like technically, yes. Technically there is a way for you to have like a backup opportunity here where you can just say, oh yeah, sure, I absolutely can take that pre-order right now.
Yeah.
Get them to Venmo you or use your Square reader to swipe their card or something so that you're not sitting on an Excel spreadsheet that has their credit card number in it or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. As long as you're using something in that transaction, that process whereby you're still capturing payment and customer data, then that's the key, right? So yes, if you're using Venmo or one of these other tools to do the transaction, you're still capturing the customer data. You can still put that into, your order spreadsheet or whatever you're doing when you get back to your place. And they can still feel comfortable with the way that transaction took place. So yeah, I agree with that. Now I realize that we've not really talked about any of the actual things that you would do to set up a pre-order campaign. The reason for that is obviously it's going to be different depending on which route you take. If you do the Kickstarter route, there's obviously a process to how you set up a Kickstarter campaign, how you would upload particular files or things like that, and some of those things. From a direct sales standpoint, again, hopefully you're using Lulu, and if so, it is a fairly straightforward process, and we're happy to provide resources for that if you want to do that as well. And then manually, that's going to vary too. So we're not going to give you step-by-step here. I just wanted to recognize that we did gloss over that. There's a reason for that, but we're more than happy to answer any of those questions if you have those. You can email us or check out our site for lots of resources around that. Why did you have that picture up on your screen?
What picture? Of
me getting my DoorDash food.
Because that was the last chat that I had opened on Mattermost.
Bro, that's wild. I don't like it. All right. So lastly, real quick, let's just tie some of this back together. Let's talk about some of the ways to maximize your audience reach when you are doing a pre-order. Because again, everybody struggles a little bit too with audience and making sure that we're getting enough sets of eyeballs and ears on what we're doing. Having a pre-order campaign is a great marketing asset, right? Whenever we talk about things, we tend to put them into this box of this is a marketing asset or a tactic or something you can do. And just like the actual concept of writing a book can be a marketing asset for growing your brand or who you are on the nonfiction side, and there's lots of benefits on the fiction side. A pre-order campaign for that book is also a marketing tactic or asset that you can use, again, to further the reach of what you're trying to do, whether that's grow your brand or just get more of your fiction books in the hands of new readers and continue building that audience. So it's a great way to start building buzz before launch. We've talked about that. Mm-hmm. I hate the word buzz. I just saw it in the outline and I read it, and now I wish I hadn't.
I'll add it to the list of
you won't
words that are out.
But what it does
You're the one that said it.
My eyes just glanced down, and for some reason I just saw the word buzz, and it happened to fit right with what I was saying. I wish it hadn't, but anyways.
I'm going to make you a bunch of bracelets that are all just the
hey,
the
by
words
the way,
that you don't
what do your
hear.
bracelets say today?
What do my bracelets say?
That's what I just asked.
They say ghost host,
okay,
haunted, and love is a dagger.
Huh. Mm-hmm. I like the first two.
I knew you would. Although, never mind. I'm not going to tell you.
Okay. Yeah, good. All right.
Sorry. I distracted you. I'm going to make you a bracelet that says buzz and another one that says webinar.
I'm just trying to bring all this back full circle and give them some pointers on building audience using a pre-order campaign. Yes. Why a pre-order campaign is part of your marketing strategy, I should say, and not just a sales tactic, right? So again, we talk about the pre-order campaign as it's not just a way to generate revenue. So therefore it's not just a sales tactic. It is an actual marketing tactic, because you can use a pre-order campaign for way more marketing reasons than you can sales reasons. Yes, they all tie in together at some point, but really, again, leveraging this pre-order campaign as a marketing opportunity is what we're talking about, and how to maximize your reach there, right?
Yes, absolutely. But I also do want to make the point that the pre-order campaign should not be the first time that you're talking about your book.
No.
And I know that contradicts a little bit with what I said at the beginning about how you're kind of wasting your pre-launch time if you're doing all this pre-launch advertising, but you're not like driving people to actually purchase your book with that advertising. And that's not what I'm talking about either. I'm talking about the fact that you should be, at the very least, priming your audience for the fact that you have a new book coming out, that you have something in the works. We've talked a lot about the idea of writing in public, talking about what you're doing, asking your audience for feedback, asking your audience for input, involving them in the conversation in some way. At the very least, like, you know, just making it known that this is something that you're working on back in the time that you're still working on it. But also in other ways, if you're already published and you have the opportunity to include some kind of teaser in the back of your most recent book or any of your other books, whether it's, I fall for every single time when the first chapter of the next book is included at the end of the last book. I always go right. Like, there's no better way to guarantee you that I'm going to read the next book in the series than to include that first chapter, because I'll just dive right in and then I'll immediately go for it. But if that's not relevant for you, even just like a single page, you know, if you ever look at some of like, it's really popular in mass market paperbacks. This is a very popular strategy in like specifically the mass market paperbacks that you see, like the pocket size ones that you see at stores, where the last couple of pages of those books will be 1-page advertisements for either other books by that author or other like books in that genre from the same publisher.
Yeah.
And even that is just a very simple, you don't have to do it in your print books, but if you have an ebook where you have the opportunity to just really quickly add 1 extra page to the back of the ebook that is like a, hey, if you liked this, there's another one coming out soon. Or, hey, if you want to learn more about this particular strategy that I talked about in this book, like, read this other one.
Those require a bit of pre-planning, though.
Yeah.
So I think what I really want to leave them with before we sign off here is ways to immediately expand your audience using a pre-order campaign. And the way that you do this, and this ties back to a fundamental marketing concept, and this can apply to anything, not just books or pre-orders, but word of mouth is the absolute best marketing you could ever hope to get for your brand, your business, your product, your service. It doesn't matter. And so up until the point where you've enacted a pre-order campaign, yes, all of these things that you just talked about are great, and the things we talk about all the time are great, sure. But until you have a pre-order in place, the only thing that you can go and tell your friends about from your favorite author is not how, oh, go watch them write this book in public. I mean, you can say that, but they're going to be like, okay, whatever. There's 2 things you can go to your friend and say about an author that you just found that you love. Either A, go check out these 2 books I just read that are already published, right? Or B, they've got a book up right now for pre-order. You should get your hands on this. It gives people a reason to now go out and talk about you to their friends and family and colleagues and other people, because there's something tangible now. Whereas prior to that pre-order, you're in that pre-marketing phase like you were just talking about. So this is stuff that's, you know, again, hopefully you've started this months and months in advance of your launch. And so you can be thinking about those things. Every time you launch a book, there's a page in the back, a sales page, right, for your next books or your previous books, and some of those other things that require a lot more pre-planning and long-term effects. But using a pre-order campaign to gain new audience, A, the pre-order has to be up and live, and B, the way that it does that is through word of mouth, period. Like, that's the best way to build new audience, because I'm going to take a suggestion from you, from somebody much more seriously than I might some ad I got on Instagram or some fake AI-generated review on a third-party platform. You all know what I'm talking about. And yes, I do take Lauren's book recommendations when they aren't romance a little more seriously than I might, you know, somebody else. So having that pre-order is a gateway to a new audience, particularly through word of mouth.
Absolutely, it is. And I don't disagree with any of that.
You have to ask for it, though, right?
Yes.
Hey, go tell your friends about my book. That's my pre-order.
You do have to ask for it. It's also pre-order campaigns, like many other pre-launch efforts, are a great opportunity for you to partner with other authors or creators.
Yeah.
For that word of mouth recommendation, whether it's asking them to promote your book or asking them to share the opportunity with you for both of you to promote your books together, or other, you know, get creative with different ways that you can like collaborate on promoting your new books together.
Yeah.
Or promoting each other. Maybe they're not writing a book or they don't have a new book coming out, but they're willing to have you on your podcast, and in exchange for you getting to promote your book on their podcast, you're going to promote their podcast to your audience.
Yeah.
You know, there are great opportunities here for this to work out with working with other people.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Or other platforms,
or
by
other
the way, like
platforms,
BookFunnel is a good one for doing pre-order stuff and really getting the word out. So there are other ways to amplify your reach, and yes, that's a great one too. Is collaborating with other authors that you've hopefully already networked with at events and built relationships with, right?
Yeah.
Another episode you could check out if you wanted to.
Yep.
You can create some urgency around your pre-order by offering, like you talked about earlier, some extras that go along. Everybody loves some extras, right? Mm-hmm. We've seen some amazing nonfiction pre-order campaigns hit the market over the last couple of months. Well, we're in January 2025 right now, if you're listening to this in the future, but with some nonfiction authors through Tilt Publishing where they're offering extra things when you do the pre-order. And, we're seeing pre-orders now hitting 1,000 units, 1,500 units. Some self-published and indie authors won't sell that many units in a year, let alone in a pre-order. But if you do this pre-order right, if you pre-market properly, if you get ahead of the game, you offer a couple of extras and I'm not talking about, a free car wash and 2 free beach towels, right? Like we're talking about cool little things that sometimes barely cost you anything to throw in there with the pre-order. Or on the nonfiction side, sometimes it's the chance to win, a 1-hour consulting period session with this particular person or things like that.
Which is I don't want to let that get buried in there. Just the idea of anybody who pre-orders this book will be entered into a raffle for the possibility of winning a 1-hour consultation with me or something like that. You don't have to give out $5,000 worth of online courses for free as an incentive for people to buy this book from you.
Or go buy 6,000 bookmarks that have your new book cover on them and slide them into each. I mean, you can do those things, but the point is you can go outside of the box and get more creative and drive more value and more urgency and incentive for people to want to be, part of this pre-order versus just picking up a copy afterwards.
Technically, this doesn't cost you anything if you want to do just bonus content or something like that. Pre-order my book and I'll send you a PDF with a worksheet.
Apparently this camera we're using was like a free bonus thing from some book we bought, because this is ridiculous.
I know, I'm so over this.
At some point, I believe Haunted Mansion will come after us for these interstitials.
I'm going to have to make new ones because I'm getting bored of the same 2 over and over again.
Oh my God. If anybody knows of a great podcasting camera to use, please email us at podcast@lulu.com.
Yeah, because this one's about to go out the window.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you can get really creative with pre-order incentives.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a lot of fun with that. I actually just had a couple of weeks ago, an author that I really loved it wasn't even a pre-order. It was a fundraiser, incentive. She was asking people to donate to the LA fire relief funds.
Great, yeah.
And she said, anybody who donates any amount of money to any of these organizations and submits a Google form, prove it with receipt of donation, I will email you a chapter that I cut from this book.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. She raised $1,000 overnight, which is, she's an indie author. That's a pretty great.
Yeah,
literally in 24 hours raised $1,000 for offering people a 5-page cut scene that hadn't been edited. Obviously, I think a lot of the people, including myself, would have donated for no exchange, but that little extra incentive was enough for me to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this right now. Instead of thinking about I'm going to stop what I'm doing right now and do this right now and think about this. So, there are ways to I've done plenty of pre-orders where I've purchased a book as a pre-order because the only thing the author promised was, I will send you a signed book plate. Sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes it's okay.
Hey, that's fair. Yeah.
I was thinking about buying this book already, and now I get to add an exclusive little special signed book plate to it. Some of the authors have said I'll personalize it and sign it. So yeah. Or they had a cool design. The sticker was is a cool design. It's not just a plain sticker with their signature on it. Yeah. Okay, I think low lift.
The point here, as we get at the 60-minute mark, is get creative,
yes.
Go outside of the box. But really, I think the bulk of this episode is really to help you understand not only how beneficial pre-order campaigns can be for multiple reasons, but at the end of the day, it truly is a really good marketing tactic and marketing asset for pre-launch marketing activity that can really make sure you launch successfully,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So treating this thing as a marketing activity and not just a sales activity, not just something you're going to do to make a little extra money or to try and game the bestseller algorithm on, that one platform where it's super easy. and nobody cares anymore if you're bestseller on that platform. Treat it as a marketing asset to gain yourself more earned media opportunities, to do it in a direct fashion where you're going to gain customer data for remarketing purposes later on, and to open up the other doors and possibilities to expanding your audience to new readers through using some of these tactics, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
I think maybe the closing point is putting it this way. Out of all of the things that we have talked about in the year and change that we've been doing this podcast, if it was me right now planning my book launch strategy, probably the number one, maybe number two thing that I would plan on doing would be a pre-launch or like a pre-order campaign. There is no way that I would ever put out a book that did not include in the marketing strategy a pre-order campaign.
You could have full stopped right after there's no way you're putting out a book.
Damn.
As my kids would say, do you want some aloe for that burn?
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, I think I need it.
My daughter absolutely cooks me every time we play certain like word games and things. And she loves that because if she beats her dad at a word game, I think it feels even more impressive to her because I am a word nerd. But she always asks me that, like, oh, Dad, do you want some aloe for that? And I'll just be like, whatever. All right, fine. I just got cooked by my 14-year-old, 15-year-old daughter.
Good for her.
Yep. All right. Let's wrap this thing up.
Yeah. I mean, I think we did it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add. Do you?
No, I want to go get a snack.
All right, great. I want to eat lunch. Some of us didn't have a bagel 20 minutes ago or before we started recording.
It was an hour ago. I need a snack now.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you were able to watch it, I swear we're going to figure out this camera issue.
By we, you mean you. As it dies again.
It died again.
All right.
So we're just going to end it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Later.
To learn more about this episode, check out the show notes on publishprosperpodcast.com. Publish and Prosper is brought to you by Lulu.com. To hear more episodes like this one, please like and subscribe wherever you listen. Thanks for tuning in.